Please join me in the responsive reading on page 659.
And by the way, Walt Whitman was gay.
Just so you know. The sum of all known reverence I add up in you, whoever you are.
Those who govern are there for you. It is not you who are there for them.
All architecture is what you do to it when you look upon it.
All music is what awakens from you when you are reminded by the instruments.
The sun and stars that float in the open air, the apple-shaped earth, we upon it.
The endless pride and outstretching of people, unspeakable joys and sorrows.
The wonder everyone sees in everyone else they see, and the wonders that fill each moment of time forever.
It is for you, whoever you are. It is no farther from you than your hearing and sight are from you. It is hinted by nearest, commonest, readiest.
We consider Bibles and religions divine. I do not say they are not divine. I say they have all grown out of you and may grow out of you still.
It is not they who give the life. It is you who give the life.
Will you seek afar off? You surely come back at last, and things best known to you, finding the best, or as good as the best.
Happiness, knowledge, not in another place, but this place. Not for another hour, but this hour.
Everybody has some sayings from Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson. We're going to read through them. They're both humanists, so we get an idea of what humanism is and where they're coming from. You want to read the first one, and then whoever wants to read the next one.
So you can pick what you want to read, or are we going through it?
Pick what the one you want to read.
Okay. I like the 1, 2, 3, 4. I like them all, but I like the fifth one.
Okay.
Society never advances. It recedes as fast on one side as it gains on another. It undergoes continual change. It is barbarous, it is civilized, it is Christianized, it is rich, it is scientific, but this change is not amelioration. For everything that is given, something is taken.
Someone else?
I'll read the long one because I got to really.
Okay.
Yeah, no one wants to do those. These are the voices which we hear in solitude, but they grow faint and inaudible as we enter into the world. Society everywhere is in conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. Society is a joint stock company in which members agree for better securing of his bread to each shareholder, to surrender the liberty and culture of the eater. The virtue in most request is conformity. Self-reliance is its aversion. It loves not realities and creators, but names and customs. Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist. He who would gather immortal palms must not be hindered by the name of goodness, but must explore if it be goodness. Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. Absolve you to yourself, and you shall have the suffrage of the world. I.
Someone else?
I'll read the fourth one.
Okay.
Prayer that craves a particular commodity, anything less than all good, is vicious. Prayer is the contemplation of the facts of life from the highest point of view. It is the soliloquy of a beholding and jubilant soul. It is the Spirit of God pronouncing his works good. But prayer as a means to effect a private end is theft and meanness. It supposes dualism and not unity in nature and consciousness. As soon as the man is at one with God, he will not beg.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
It seems to me that God is commonly worshipped in civilized countries is not all divine. Though he bears a divine name, but is the overwhelming authority and respectability of mankind combined. Men reverence one another, not yet God.
Anybody else want to read one? If not, you could take these home with you and read them later and think about them and see if you get any inspiration from them. Humanism. Humans experience awe. Humans feel sorrow, pain, fear, and humiliation. Humans know love, joy, wonder, and amazement. As creatures with thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations we feel, and religion, at its best, meets human feeling at the gut level. Reverend Kendall Gibbons, pastor of the First Universalist Society of Minneapolis, is a lifelong humanist. Gibbons brings decades of parish experience to her ministry. She has served as president of the Unitarian-Universalist Ministers Association, sat on the board of the UU Humanists, and is co-dean of the Humanist Institute. A fine preacher, Gibbons leaves her colleagues, and I suspect her congregants, satisfied in head and heart. And like most ministers in our liberal tradition, she wrestles with religious language in a 21st century world. In a recent essay in the UU World magazine, Gibbons writes, "As a young Unitarian Universalist in the 1960s, I was educated about human sexuality in a relatively open fashion. Human religious experience, in contrast, was a closed book. I discovered my spirituality in much the same way that my peers raised in more conservative faiths discovered their sexuality, accidentally, secretively, without guidance, moved by overwhelming inner tides and some sense of shame. To my parents and teachers, almost all of whom had grown up in other religious traditions, the absence of text, rote prayers, sacraments, holy objects, and moralistic picture books represented freedom. But without any language for my emerging sense of mystery and wonder, I came to feel the contrary, deprived of the tools with which to understand or express those experiences." Reverend Howard N. Dana of the Universalist Church of Harrisburg replies that we humans express ourselves through language. Yes, we paint, draw, sew, dance, play instruments, and make things with our hands. But take away language, and we are a little more than artistic mimes. Take away language, and communication looks quite different. So it stands to reason that we humans express our religious feelings through language too. From prayers to chants to songs and sermons, we use words to express that which profoundly moves us. In using language to express religious feelings, we may have become overconfident in our ability to capture wonder and awe. We have tried to tame the profound with sheer verbiage. Now, Unitarian Universalists are a particularly wordy bunch to begin with. In light of our verbosity, we must ponder Gibbons' central question. What language do we use to describe a sense of mystery and wonder? What guidance do we give children and new members to express their inner tides of spiritual knowing? How do we speak of reverence? For those keeping track, we are in the third decade of a prolonged denominational debate about style. In its starkest terms, it has been called the humanist-theist debate. This debate is a distraction from the real work of sharing our life-saving faith with those who seek it. In that it engages only the most contrary theists and humanists. The humanist-theist debate can be described as a tempest in a teapot. In many churches, the debate often boils down to generational differences. Do we like classical or contemporary music? What is our comfort level with traditional religious language? How anti-clerical is our congregation? What authority issues do we have? Who are all these new people who don't know how things are supposed to be done around here? And most telling, why can't I get any help doing the things I've always been doing forever? How people see their church often depends on the era in which they joined. Additionally, Reverend Dana goes on to say, most Unitarian Universalists I know don't care a whit if someone believes in God or not. They care how people live their religion. The humanist-theist debate doubly frustrates me because I consider myself a humanist, one with a deep sense of holiness that pervades all of life. The way I know I'm a humanist is that I commit to work within the human community to make ours a better world. Not for 1 minute do I think that prayers or religious observances will result in a supernatural God altering the laws of physics to intervene on our behalf. God does not stop hurricanes or cancer, no matter how hard we might pray. When it comes to caring for our world, there are no hands but our hands. There are no hearts but our hearts. There is no will but our will. We are part of the natural world with the power to save it or destroy it. We sin through our destruction and find salvation through our redemption. I am alone in bringing to my work the inspiration of men, women, and children through the ages. Humanist examples I follow include Jesus, Buddha, Francis of Assisi, Hildegard of Bingen, Michael Servetus, Mother Jones, Thomas Starr King, Harriet Tubman, Margaret Fuller, Henry David Thoreau, Jeanette Rankin, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Ryan White, and so many more. As a humanist, I am keenly interested in what human communities do to provide for people's physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual needs. I am keenly interested in how this congregation reaches out to friend and stranger alike. Do we do what religion communities must, namely help people respond to reverence? And just to make sure, that was from Reverend Dana. That's not my personal views. That's his views. And Reverend Kendall Gibbons further states, I submit that a religious tradition that does not help its members discover meaningful and satisfying ways of expressing and responding to the human experiences of reverence that happen in the course of their human lives is missing a crucial, central part of its function. We are not dealing in debate or persuasion here. We are talking about how we, each of us, and our uniquely constituted beings, recognize and understand and make sense of the unbidden, overwhelming awe at the wonder, magnificence, danger, demand, and delight of being alive. In clearer terms, is this church a place where you can come and grieve and not be embarrassed to cry? Is ours a community that confronts you when your loved one dies? Is it a place where you can wrestle with faith and be respected in your conclusions? Is it a place where you feel no shame in admitting fear, confusion, frustration, or doubt? Do we have it all together here? Or is there room for brokenness? If there is not ample room for human brokenness among us, what kind of humanists are we? Again, I rely on Gibbons' essay. In the 2003 sermon that sparked much of the controversy over the language of reverence within our denomination, UUA President William Sinkford speaks of a long night sitting in the hospital with his teenage son who lay near death. I felt the hands of a loving universe reaching out to hold, the hands of God, the Spirit of life. The name was unimportant. I knew that I did not have to walk that path alone, that there is a love that has never broken faith with us and never will. No one can argue that Sinkford didn't have the experience he says he did. The question is where our faith community is collectively prepared to help him understand, process, and honor it. How do we at the Universalist Church in Westville do when a member dies? How would we do if a member commits a crime and is imprisoned? How do we do when a member is abused or loses control of his or her mind? How do we do with those in our midst struggling with depression or addiction? These are the humanist questions we need to ask of ourselves. It's a little known fact that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King held close sympathies with the Unitarians. He spoke at some of our churches and attended more than a few Unitarian worship services with his wife and children. For King, the sticking point between Unitarians and Baptists was not a theological one. It was a practical one. King wanted to free his people. The Baptist faith spoke of the words of freedom more easily and readily than the Unitarian faith of King's day. By remaining a Baptist, King did not have to worry about being shunned when he experienced weakness, doubt, or despair. He did not have to worry about being misunderstood when he spoke of the double sins of racism and poverty. He didn't have to rely on the words of learned men to inspire change. In short, King did not have to translate in the Baptist church. The people there knew what he was going through. There was more support there for a black preacher on a dangerous quest. Of course, we cannot go back in history, nor should we try. What is done, but imagine a modern-day Unitarian Universalism where a new Martin Luther King might find a home. We never know who will walk through our doors. Christian and Jews are usually surprised when I proudly tell them that how our church embraces atheists, agnostics, and humanists. They have trouble wrapping their minds around why non-believers would want to be involved with the church in the first place. They want to know what kind of glue holds us all together. With a smile, I explain that ours is a big tent religion. We are guided by a moral code, the purpose and principles, and we care more about what a person does with his or her beliefs than the nature of those beliefs. We care about deeds, not creeds. But even as I describe our faith, I realize keeping a big tent religion is going to be a tall order to fill. In a society that likes neat categories, male, female, black and white, young and old, gay and straight, believer and non-believer, we don't fit in. We deal in shades of gray here. We traffic in nuance and exploration. Even among our churches, some are more humanist, others more pagan, and some largely Christian. On a Sunday morning in Boston, you can walk less than a mile from King's Chapel to First Church Boston. And in doing so, you will find you have walked from an architecturally historic Christian church that adheres to the Bible to a modern, humanist-centric one that uses the latest poetry and prose in worship. Both churches are roughly the same age, having formed in the mid-1600s when Massachusetts was a young British colony. Both have healthy congregations, and both are equally Unitarian Universalists. King's Chapel is no more or less part of our denomination than First Church Boston. Neither church is more or less Unitarian Universalist than our congregations in Wichita or Anchorage or Montreal or Miami. There is unity in our diversity. What I think this sermon boils down to is making room for all. People are drawn to our faith for a variety of reasons, not the least of which are humans experience awe. Humans feel sorrow, pain, fear, and humiliation. Humans know love, joy, wonder, and amazement. A Unitarian Universalist church is a place where atheists, agnostics, and humanists can find a home together. It is a place where people who speak of their spirituality in theistic terms can find a home, and everybody else in between. I personally believe in a higher power, a source of light, if you will. It has been my experience that prayer does work, and I always ask that I do God's will. But I also feel deep spirituality when I am in my meditation garden, a place where I had a vision of the Great Spirit riding a white buffalo. The chimes hanging in the white birch tree always start ringing when I enter the meditation garden. But humanist teachings and beliefs ring true to me also. It is the part of me that fights for social justice. I am here because I can combine several belief systems and still belong. I know that we can always fit one more person here, no matter their beliefs. There is always room for one more. May there always be room for one more here. May we live unafraid of what the one more might believe. May we be concerned only that he or she finds us a people with whom to share an unbidden, overwhelming awe at the wonder, magnificence, danger, demand, and delight of being alive. May we be worthy of the title humanist. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and sing number 331, Life is the Greatest Gift of All.